Hey guys, and welcome to this video. We just had a match last night with Kbkhan91 versus KinglyBingly, and it was a blast, to say the least. It was so much fun to actually watch these guys battle it out on their own. They played 15 plus 10 games, and it was the best out of 5 games. So the first one to claim 3 points would win, basically. And that being said, these are some highlights from every game. I'm not going to talk about too much throughout the games themselves, other than highlights. But we're going to go through all of the games that were played, and we're going to see how they played. Even though I'm not going to comment so much on, let's say, the openings and stuff like that, other than things that were missed and things that could have been played better, or simply put, how one were winning and the other were not. And these guys, as you can see, are fairly low rated. They're not grandmasters, obviously. That being said, I'm not either, so bear with me with these analysis, and let's dive right into it. But I feel like I've gotten the crucial parts right, at least. So KinglyBingly started out as white, and he played the move c4. And I played KinglyBingly a couple of games, a couple of days ago actually, and he played this same thing against me, and I like it. He has this King's Indian system as white, but he didn't manage to get everything right in this one. And as you will see in another game where Kingly is white again in 2 games, you're gonna see that Kbkhan doesn't exactly know how to do this or play this. But for now, Kbkhan actually managed to get through in the position with f5. That's something he does not in his second black game, and that is a crucial move to make. Even though f5 here maybe be a bit vulnerable due to the a2 g8 diagonal, it's still kind of nice. He tries to attack and tries to demolish white's massive pawn center. Alright, so we're just going to play through these real quick, and we see some trades, and that's it pretty much. So there's a bishop and bishop versus bishop and knight. But the problem here is that white or KinglyBingly goes for a queen trade, and that in itself might be not so crucial. But look at his bishops. These two guys right here doesn't have a lot of squares due to the fact that Kingly has played both f4 and d5, so his own pawns are kind of cramping his own position, and that's really annoying for him. And here he plays bishop to d4, and bishop b5, just trying to target this knight, I think is preferable, just because this knight has the mobility that the bishops does not at the current moment. And by trying to trade off this knight, you're saying that, well, if I'm not going to have any play with my bishops, you're not going to have any play with your knight either. But we don't get there. He plays bishop d4, and the game continues from there. And black manages to trade off the 2 dark squared bishops, so black now is in good shape due to the knight versus bishop situation here. But still, black doesn't have a really great and active plan other than this pass pawn on e4 at the current time. And white should try to do more damage to this c7 pawn immediately. He should try to get that one before black can mobilize, so to speak. And Kbkhan just defends the h5 pawn. This is the only pawn and weakness that white can actually target with his bishop. but it's easily defended even by the king actually. So yeah, after rook e8 we see more moves, and there's a bit of a shuffling here really. And I think at this point black is a tiny bit better just because of his past e-pawn, but there's no easy way for black to actually penetrate into white's position. White can easily defend with rook e3, rook 4 to c3, etc, etc. And black should really have tried to play more on the queen side in this case. But then again, white has a half-open c-file to his advantage. So maybe Kbkhan was playing it as good as he could. But now you can see that his knight isn't actually doing anything on g6. But white too lacks space and any plan. And we can see some more moves. And here, what would you have played in this position? I'm gonna give you 5 seconds to think about it. It's white to move. What would you have played? Okay, so KinglyBingly went for a straight up sacrifice with bishop captures e4, and the logic behind it is quite easy to understand. He wants to open things up for his rooks and get more play, but the position doesn't require it to be a sacrifice here. If he would have just went back to, let's say, b3 with his bishop, or back to d1, just keeping the position as it is, black really doesn't have much to go on with anyways. So by playing these moves, and certainly taking with the d rook here, kind of just giving away material for nothing, because black was a pawn up, and now you've gained 2 pawns but lost 1 in the process of giving up your bishop. So that means that there's an even amount of pawns here, but white is down a piece, and that is crucial. So at this point white hopes for some attack against the king, but there's nothing really to be found. And after the trade of the rooks, which is really really bad for white, now it's simply lost due to these weak pawns on a4 and b5. Like white doesn't have any defensive ideas, so after black gets the e file as well, he simply has too much. And even though white gets the h5 pawn, he should have gone for a bit. He should have gone with something like rook to d5 and brought up his other pawns as well. Because as you will see, he does not bring his pawns to their full potential by making them protect one another. And this is just a yeah, it's just a matter of technique, really. So you will see more moves, but soon you will see that there's nothing to play on for. But this rook e1. So KinglyBingly tries for a mate here on e8, but Kbkhan, having limited time on his clock, but still enough to actually manage to make some thinking, saw that this was going to be a mate, but don't take anything for granted, obviously. So white might still have some other ideas. And after king to h7, rook to e1, white was hoping for a mistake by black, something like rook to g8, king to f7, and let's say knight to c2, and this would be mate, rook to h1. But obviously black sees all this. He saw the first mate threat, so he's definitely going to see this other one as well. So at this point, there's not much to play on for KinglyBingly as white, and he simply resigned at this point. So from game 1, Kbkhan leads 1-0, and the second game got quite interesting as well, as you might see. We're just gonna go back here. Oh, I have evaluation on here. I'm so sorry. That is not. Maybe I have that on every other one as well. I'm just gonna bring it all the way back here so that we get the computer lines off, and so that you guys can see the board properly. So this is the second game, and you see a Sicilian. KinglyBingly plays the dragon, and we will see something quite standard, pretty much, in the dragon. But yeah, I'm not going to talk too much about the openings, as I said. But here, black should have opted for something like d5, just trying to blast open the center. And gone for some really quick and rapid development for his bishop on c8, because currently that bishop doesn't have anything. But he's trying to get that away done by a6 and b5 instead. But c6, like after this move here, I think you should take with the b pawn, take towards the center, and then play d5. Get your pieces into the action, get a grip in the center, and get ready for an attack. And here, I think it's pretty decent for black just to capture on d2. Really, just trade off the queens, and then play e5 and be happy. Opt for something like f5 later on, after king h8 or something like that. We have queen a5 and bishop h6. So here, again, I think black should have played something like e5. The bishop on g7 isn't going to be there for much longer. So needless to say, he can clamp down here and get his bishop out to attack white's king on the queen side. Because as you can see, these pawns right here, this pawn chain, is really just stopping every single threat that this bishop might have had on b7. So yeah, now he trades queens, and we see some more moves, some more trades. And here, I think KinglyBingly should have traded instead of actually going with b4. It's rather weakening towards the a5 pawn, and as you can see, after a few more moves here, Kingly isn't looking out for his a5 pawn, and that a4 pawn for white will really become a monster in this position. So rook c7 and knight captures b7, rook captures b7 and b3. So white is just clamping down, holding everything nice and tight. It's so solid, it's super solid, and black can almost sit tight and wait for white to advance. That's probably the only thing black can do at this point. It's really tough for black to find any active counterplay or plan while stopping the a pawn from going anywhere. But maybe at this point, black should have tried at least something like knight to h5 and f5. Just trying to get rid of some of these pawns and get an attack on these pawns so that he might have some attacking chances on the other side of the board. Because right now he's giving white everything he wants by just managing the safe pushing of this a4 pawn. Rook c7 and a5, obviously. That pawn wants to go to a6, maybe even a7 at some point. So I like Kingly's idea, but I think it's already a bit too late. I think knight h5 and f5 again would have just given black so much more playing chances in this position, even though white is clearly better here. Knight to d7, just trying to hold on, but after these moves, really not much to hope for. And here, it's really down to nothing for black. So the king goes up, and you can see that after some pawn trades, the pawns will fall for black. And there's nothing he can do in this position than sit tight and watch all of his pawns simply fade away. So Kingly decided to throw in the towel here. And this was the second game he lost in this match so far. And that means that he has to come back really hard. And that's hopefully what we're going to see in game 3. And as you know, there's 4 games. So either this game ends in a draw or KinglyBingly wins. That's the thing. But he has to come back at least. So we will see a nice attacking game here. And this is the game I was talking about, where another white opening for KinglyBingly. But in this game he doesn't play e4, he plays instead e3. So somewhat a different game. But even though it is a somewhat different opening, it's still a King's Indian by default. And now black really should opt for something like f5, as I mentioned earlier. f5 is really it's screaming out, play me, play me, but it's not getting there. So Kbkhan is really throwing away some stuff here. And here white just plays rook to b1. He doesn't want to lose his b2 pawn. Also maybe wants to push b4 at some point, a3, b4. But at this point black is actually getting crushed. f4 by white. A really good move, strong move. And the attacking idea is simply to bring the f-pawn forward and trade it off so that the rook can penetrate inside of black's camp. And that bishop on d4 can really just get traded off. It has nothing to do with the position. It was a defensive piece for black, so white is happy to get rid of that. Especially for the knight on e2, which really wasn't doing much. And here you will see that there's truly nothing white can do here. I mean black can do here to prevent catastrophe. So f captures e6 and queen to c7. Trying to hold on to f7 here. But there's mate threats all over the place here. And KinglyBingly played a really strong move here. Can you see what he played? I'm going to give you 5 seconds. Alright, so KinglyBingly played queen to f6. A really strong move. So what happens if knight goes to h5, attacking this queen? Well, it's not easy to say really. The simplest way would probably just to capture here, and after rook takes, just take again, and takes, and takes. And this would be a really fine position for white to play on with after rook to f1. If the knight goes, then you see g4, g5, or even bishop to g5. And there's not much else black can really do here. If for instance king to e7, we will see g4, and the knight has only one square, and that is f6, and then the bishop would come to g5, and this knight is gone. So another move is this move, but then that leads to checkmate, obviously. and there's not much black can do to really cope with the fact that this knight is hanging. Also, black has another move here, which is knight to e8. And then I'm not exactly sure how to proceed other than queen to f4 or captures on d4. Either one looks really nice, and it just looks crushing for white. If f6, you're going to take the rook. You can like, there's so many options here, and white has a really big advantage. Kbkhan blundered though and took with his f pawn onto e6, and here Kbkhan resigned because he realized, well, I'm actually blundering mate in 1 with queen captures f8. This was a really great game by KinglyBingly. A strong attack, having the will of Rocky Balboa here, I guess. just amazing, I would have to say. He played really well. Took advantage of black's poor king side. Alright, so now from this point it's 2-1. Kbkhan leads the game, and as I've said, there's only 4 games, so that means that there is going to be regretfully a win to Kbkhan in the last game. But Kbkhan only needed a draw at this point to actually win the match. Well, not really, actually. What am I saying? He didn't. He needed a win, because he had only 2 points. So a draw would only draw, or could actually draw the match. But okay, let's go and skip to the next game and final game. And here KinglyBingly played black again. And we have an Italian game. Just really straightforward Italian game. Not going to talk too much about it here, but okay. At this point, no one really cared much about their position, and the queenside pawn for black is really having some trouble after c5. Can you see why that is? What could white have played here? Neither of the players saw this though. So okay, knight captures b5 is the idea. If pawn captures back, then rook captures a8, obviously. To most people at least. So I'm a bit shocked actually that Kbkhan didn't see that. But I guess he was just a tiny bit annoyed by the last game. Didn't want to go and take unnecessary risks, even though this is not a risk. He was probably too worried about his own king's safety. As you can see, he played h3 instead. Wanting nothing to do with pieces against his king. So queen b6, and we see some more moves, and here again, after the knight moves and d6, the pawn on b5 is still hanging, but still he didn't play it. He played the correct knight, but not the correct knight move. Alright, so we have some more moves here, and we can see that they are just trying to get mobility for all their pieces, trying to get them into better positions at this moment. And here, KinglyBingly unfortunately capitalizes and forgets about his pawn and a fork on the queen and the rook. So after knight captures d6, queen to c6, he loses an exchange. It's not the end of the world, even though white is better here, obviously. But black should really try to pressurize the d3 pawn at this point. Not caring too much about his mobility with his other pieces. So now he's trying to actually just trade down, and I think that's the wrong assessment of this position. Just create a battery and try to at least force the d3 pawn's defenses for now. Bishop to d8, I don't see why that's a move, or what he's trying to achieve. Like, he wants this move and this move in another order, obviously. So he wants to play knight to e5, knight takes, queen takes, and then bishop c7, and hopefully get something along this to work. But it's too much and too risky. So we're not gonna see that in this game, as you might have understood by my by me saying it. But okay, he tries at least to get something onto h2, but then he trades down in a position where he's already down an exchange, and that's kind of a bad thing. And here he kind of forces either the loss of another exchange or the another sequence of trades. So he chooses to take the f2 queen, or the queen, for just trading them off. And it's either that or getting a pawn on d3, but losing this rook to this bishop move. But maybe that wasn't such a bad idea after all. Taking here, bishop takes, and if you can get your bishop to d4, even though if the queen wasn't here, let's not, like king h1 after that, something like that. But just getting your bishop to d4 would really hold down white's position and really ask white, yeah, how are we going to continue playing now? So then white would have had to force open his own king safety and king side to get an attack going, and force open something here. And if ever e5 was played, this bishop really gets a strong hold from b7. So maybe that could have been played. I'm not sure. It's really hard to tell, because black is definitely worse here, no matter what he does. But just trading down with nothing to compensate for it might be even worse. So at this point, there's two rooks versus a rook and a bishop, and KinglyBingly is down a pawn. 2 pawns actually, sorry, and there's not much to hope for. And here again, black should have tried to capture on e4. So after bishop captures, pawn captures, rook captures d2. Even though the a6 pawn will fall, you still have these targets right here. So if that were to happen, Kbkhan would probably not take back on e4, but then you have a nice diagonal for your bishop at least. So after this capture, rook captures a6, let's say rook captures here, or bishop captures, but probably you wouldn't want this capture to happen because of rook back to a1 and to d1. So let's say bishop captures here, then white could even throw in a check, doesn't matter. Go back, and this really lacks protection. But think again. Look at this. Bishop captures f5. And even though these 2 pawns are really weak, they are on dark squares and can never be protected by this bishop. Maybe this was kind of KinglyBingly's last hope and defense, at least. Maybe. Just trying to have even pawns with a bishop versus a rook. But after rook a5, there's really a hopeless situation to be in. This pawn will fall, and this pawn will fall eventually. So you would have just prolonged the inevitable here. But we didn't see that. We saw these moves instead. Rook d2 and f6. And again, bishop captures e4 is a valid option. And here Kbkhan tries to break free with his rooks, and now it's just a matter of technique again. So in this position right here, white can either take on d7 with his rook after the king moves somewhere. He can play this move, rook a7, capture this before trying to get this bishop. Everything is losing for black at this point, no matter how you put it. So the final score was 3-1. Kbkhan91 got 3 points and KinglyBingly got 1 point. But I would say due to unnecessary risk taking and a bit sloppiness from KinglyBingly. As you saw, he had the game where he had the most chances. That was game 3, where he really just crushed his opponent. So even though he made some mistakes and sacrificed his bishop on e4 in the first game, for instance, he really had the fighting spirit to go all the way. So for many players, the slow grinding and kind of maneuvering isn't exactly what they want there and then when they're playing. And that's really something you can feel, especially in this first game, where suddenly KinglyBingly sacrifices his bishop there, right? So, which move was that? I'm not sure. Here, yeah, so bishop captures e4. There's no need for that. Just maneuver your pieces and then you will probably have a fairly safe position. And again, in the last game, you kind of just went with everything when you tried to play bishop f6 and giving away that pawn and the rook exchange for the knight. But overall, I think it's fair to say that we want to see these guys have a match again. This was so much fun, and they really showed some high-level chess, pretty much. I had some fun at least. I hope you guys did as well. And that's it. If you guys want to check them out, please check the links down below for the Twitch channels. And yeah, that's it. If there's ever going to be another second match of these two guys playing together, I'm going to do a coverage of that too. So please give me any clues if that were ever to happen. Alright, I'm not sure if I will keep up with everything that is happening in the chess streaming society or community right now, but keep on playing chess, guys. Have a good one. Bye.